All right, welcome back. Sean Leslie with you here. Time for our Boughton Law Legal Series. Starting up smart today, and with us is Luca Cheaton, back again with us, a lawyer with Boughton Law. How you doing, Luca?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Sean.
I'm pleased to see people in person. Instead of me being this disembodied voice away over in Victoria, it's very nice to actually be in studio and meet you face to face. Good to see you.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's talk about this and starting up. And we're talking about new businesses. And Luca, when you're helping people start up a small business, when it comes to the online component, how big an issue is this for you guys these days?
These days, it's huge. I mean, particularly in Vancouver, known as Tech North, or a city like ours where there's huge startups. Tech is one of the biggest up-and-coming sectors, and so it continually, I'd say that the majority of the startup companies that I deal with have some kind of tech focus, or at least an online sales presence.
You can't really, do business these days without something like that, right? I mean, your customers are going to expect that.
Exactly, yeah. For sure.
Okay, so what are some of the pitfalls that businesses need to know about?
Well, as with anything these days, we want to start with a solid foundation. And when it comes to website businesses or businesses that have an online presence, intellectual property generally seems to be the foundation for getting started the right way. And if you're going to have a website, whether it's sales or simply a advertising tool, you're going to have on there your name, maybe some logos, some photography, some written material. And what we always encourage clients to do is make sure these materials, the intellectual property, if you will, is protected.
How do you do that?
Well, if it's a name or a logo, you'll register a trademark for that purpose with the Canadian Intellectual Property Office. If it's written material or photographs, you want to make sure that they're copywritten, just because when you're presenting to this many people, it's important that you have everything protected.
And how is that an easy process to go through?
Oh, it is quite simple. I mean, the Canadian Intellectual Property Office, I don't want to start a commercial for their services, but if
yes.
you go to their website, there's a lot of material there that is layperson friendly.
Okay, and in terms of infringing on the IP of others.
Right. So in the same way that we want to protect the material that our clients put on their website, you want to ensure that if you're creating a website, you don't infringe other people's intellectual property. And one of the most common, simplest things that our clients do is, or they might end up doing, is that, you want to save a buck, and so you'll go search online other people's websites that might be competing, and you might take a photo there, or you go to Google Images and you download a picture. These things are all owned by somebody, unless they fall in the public domain. And so you need to, if you're going to go using somebody else's images, you need to pay the proper licensing fee or get permission from whomever owns it. And that can be not necessarily difficult, but it's just a hurdle that you do have to go through.
Is it just photos you have to worry about?
No, it's written material, videos, anything that you're intending to, that you've taken from another website. Just make sure that you've gotten permission to use them on your site.
What about if you do business outside of Canada?
Well, I mean, every jurisdiction has their own laws, and so if you're, with the inherent nature of online business, you're going to be crossing borders all the time.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that if you're deemed to be doing business in other countries, you're subscribing to the laws of those jurisdictions.
What's the downfall if you don't? I mean, can you get sued, taken to court? What happens?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the results that come from the owners of the material, and then there could also be penalties under legislation.
Okay, liability for infringement of users. What do we need to know there?
Same thing that we were talking about. If you're going to download an image from somebody else's website, or if you're going to have, say, a blog element or something that allows for uploading materials to your website by third parties, which a lot of websites do these days, you want to make sure that you have terms of use on your site that say that, don't do this. Don't take other people's images. Don't take other people's written material. And if possible, as an owner or operator of the website, you want to try and actively monitor what is being posted so that nothing infringing there is put on your site by other people.
So this is like a thou shalt not infringe thing.
Exactly. We want to make sure that third parties are also, if they're putting stuff on your site, they're obeying intellectual property laws and such.
Now, all of this sounds like it might be kind of complicated, but I take it, you folks like you at Boughton Law can walk people through this?
Most definitely. And, we appreciate that most startups, be it tech or otherwise, costs and everything, it's always a bit of a concern, and you might not want to consult with a lawyer, but it's penny wise, pound foolish, and you just want to make sure that, as we said in the beginning, you start from a solid foundation.
All right. What does a founder of an online retail business need to know, Luke?
One of the questions that we get coming up most often relate to those point-and-click contracts that we're most familiar with. And I'm going to drop some legalese on you here, Sean.
Please do.
Please
do.
Just for everyone's sake, a contract, by definition, whether it's electronic or written, it's a legally enforceable exchange of obligations, and it's comprised of two main areas. There's an offer and there's an acceptance. So what we're used to seeing is one party says, "I'll do this for you," and the other party accepts it. And that acceptance historically has always been by written verification or oral.
Right.
And so on the online world, this has translated to the point and click that I accept these terms. And what we make sure that clients realize that those are valid. That is an enforceable contract.
But a lot of people don't read those, as you know, Luke.
They don't. And it's what we try and do is the reason why, and we're all familiar with this, is that when you go on these contracts, the site generally will not allow you to move from one page to the next unless you accept it.
That's right.
In order to force you to read these, what we sometimes suggest to clients is that if the contract has multiple elements that are important, that rather than just having all the terms laid out in one spot and you accept them all, maybe separate them out into 2 or 3 pages and require them to accept each page, so that way it becomes much more difficult to argue that you didn't look at it when you had to accept it 2 or 3 times.
And you're also telling me as a consumer that maybe I should take the time to read some of these every once in a while.
As a lawyer, I'm going to tell everyone to read that.
All right, what types of contracts are we talking about here?
Well, I mean, if you're doing services through your website, you'll want to have terms of services online. If you're selling something, there'll be e-commerce terms. And as with any website or business, when you're collecting information about a consumer, whether it be financial or address or whatever else, you want to ensure that you have a privacy policy online, visible to all, that they can access, to ensure that you're telling people how you manage their private information, and that's crucial.
If you're starting a business and you think, well, this is complicated, I'm just going to swipe someone else's contract that they have on their website and dupe it over to mine. Is that okay?
Well, this is, again, the same thing that we talked about with the pictures.
Yeah.
The difficulty with this, though, is, and again, I appreciate the view from some parties that they want to save some money and they figure it'll work if it's the same business. Well, take read through every line of the contract, even if it is the same business. It might be because we're dealing with the internet, a different jurisdiction. I had one scenario where I had a client who, the parties on each side of it were BC based, and for whatever reason, the contract when they went to read it, realized the laws of Delaware applied.
Oh, really?
They simply downloaded a contract that they found on another website, and it clearly did not work or fit the appropriate model of business. And that's important.
It's got to be tailored to your business.
It's got to be tailored to your business, exactly.
Luca, let's take a quick break. We're talking about what you need to know in terms of starting up a business, starting up smart. It's our Boughton Law legal series. Boughton Law is CKNW's on-air legal analyst. Luca Chiton, a lawyer at Boughton Law, is our guest, and we'll be right back.
This is News Talk 980 CKNW. Vancouver's News, Vancouver's Talk. Vancouver's News, Vancouver's Talk. This is News Talk 980 CKNW.
And 21 degrees outside our studio right now. It's our Boughton Law legal series today. We're talking about starting up smart with our guest, Luca Chiton, lawyer with Boughton Law. And Luca, we've been talking about what businesses need to know and some of the pitfalls. In terms of the laws around consumers online, Luca, who are those aimed at?
Generally, I think what we're finding here, and it's becoming more and more clear, is that whether you're online or you have a regular business, in certain ways it's no different, and that applies to consumers. So the laws do favor consumers, whether it's online or you just have a regular storefront.
So businesses need to take that into account, I take it.
Yeah, definitely. And the result of that is that when you're selling goods online, you have to abide by certain protections to ensure that the seller doesn't have an issue. And each website should have on that information about the seller. They must describe the goods that are being sold, the type of currency in which the goods are being sold, delivery arrangements, the usual thing that you would expect to see when buying any product.
And when the customer, the consumer, then is looking through all this information, they have to be able to correct it or print it off or what have you.
So one of the other requirements to protect consumers is to ensure that the consumer, before purchasing, must have an ability to access the contract and accept it before paying. And again, this is why, as we mentioned, when you're on these websites, you're not able to move forward to the final purchase until you've accepted terms, because the consumer must be able to view, correct, print, or even cancel their acceptance of the agreement before payment is made.
I see. Okay. And maybe send them an email, too, to confirm, right?
And again, this is something else that we take for granted, that we always see it whenever we buy something online, that we always get that email afterwards confirming the purchase.
I like that.
It's definitely, it's required.
Yeah.
And so if you're a vendor online, it's something you need to remember to do, that best practice to confirm, to make sure that all these things go well and you don't have any issues. Send that email afterwards detailing the contract and the transaction that just occurred.
It's great information, Luke. I really appreciate it. Of course, we've been talking what you need to know in terms of the legalities. In terms of designing a really zippy website, that's somebody else's department.
I'm not even going to comment on that.
I wouldn't even know where to start. Luke, appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much.
Luca Cheaton, lawyer with Boughton Law, our Boughton Law legal series. Boughton Law is CKNW's on-air legal analyst, and we do remind you this does not constitute legal advice.